welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me are two men who are currently on a road trip to California. It's John Levingood and Adam Clement.
I don't even fit in the back of that little school bus.
I'm in the trunk. That's why it's so dark here. Wait, no, you didn't have a trunk in the pickup. It was sort of a old-fashioned model, right?
Yeah, and I love that. So if you go back through Movies, Films, and Flicks history, Adam and I did an episode where we talked about Michael's road trip.
It was a while ago, wasn't it? It was like
two years ago?
3 years ago, maybe?
That was like, that might have been, was that in the first 100 episodes? Like late?
I think it was. I think it was a really early. So that's a deep cut for Errol.
It was like analyzing Michael Myers' cross-country trip or something?
Yeah, how many times? So I wrote an article about how many times he stops for gas and... I mean, how does he fill up gas? He steals purses, so I guess he just goes to the pump and people think he's a weirdo.
Also, in the States, he is not allowed to pump his own gas.
Yes.
To get help.
Yep.
Although I don't know outside of Jersey.
I mean, that's another... Just go listen to that episode, because Adam and
I was going to say, we're just going to be rehashing that entire dissertation, really.
Now, I got to ask you all a question before we get started. Now, how long is Ronnie's shift in this movie?
Well, you know, I feel like people who work security gigs often work long shifts in fewer days or pick up extra shifts, right? Like, so maybe because the students were about to leave the school for the most part, like maybe there wouldn't be any security after that, or it would be like really lighter security detail for a while. Maybe he was like picking up a double. We already know he's trying to make some extra money with a writing gig, you know.
He's probably also a live-in. It is a camp.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I asked my wife, Megan, I'm like, how long is Ronnie's shift? And she goes, 12 hours. I was like, okay, that works for me. I mean, that
makes sense. I was going to ask you, at what point do we first see him on the job, which is probably, late morning, early morning?
Yeah.
So presuming maybe he starts at, 9 o'clock in the morning. Maybe he ends at 9, but obviously shit went haywire before then. Obviously, he's going to stick around. Yeah.
That makes sense. I think we got to the bottom of that. Also,
well, you know what else, though? Even if it extended over his shift, what if that was like a Friday and he needed the headmaster, Jamie Lee Curtis, to sign his time card?
Yeah,
and he couldn't find her. And he couldn't find her. She wasn't in her office like normal, you know?
Right.
The Legend of Ronnie.
He was just wandering around.
Well, I'm going to ask a futile question here, but Ronnie versus the LL Cool J character in Deep Blue Sea.
Oh man, it's
so
Sherman Preacher Dudley.
So many parallels.
I mean, Cook. I mean, he talks to the bird, and then in this one he's talking to his girlfriend or wife. He's part of. He's a survivor though, man.
He is, and actually, I was going to say he was very reliable for stunt casting, which we would see go very terribly wrong in Halloween Resurrection with the rhymes.
Yeah.
So I got a playful comment question from my lab mate at work, and it has to do with that exactly. And he said, H20 came out in 1998, and LL Cool J's character survives. Did he then change his name to escape the fame or fear of surviving an attack of Michael Myers, and then take a job as a cook on a repurposed submarine facility in the middle of the ocean?
Oh my gosh. Wait, I don't yell at me. When did Deep Blue Sea come out? How much later?
So it was less than a year. So this one came out. So this movie came out in Halloween? 98. Yeah, 98. Yeah. So this came out August 5th, 1998. So that would give him. So Deep Blue Sea was released July 28th. So that would give him a year to apply and get there and become best friends with Scoggins.
Something to think about.
Wow. Also, I want to see H20 with him 20 years later, where he's been dealing with it.
We just might. These movies have been so revisionist with history, but I was going to say, this movie, as much as I love it, and I'm sure we'll get to, I want to say it did kick off the idea of a horror Halloween movie in a summer. This was a late summer release. I mean, I don't think I'm a minority when I say, like, that's very weird. Like, I want a Halloween movie around October, you know?
Mm-hmm. Do you think, August is typically the dumping ground? And there were a lot of problems on this set. So
right. Well, they had a few bumps, and I'm sure you probably know more than I do about that, but I feel like the dumping ground is traditionally January, February. So
for horror, yeah.
Later summer isn't maybe ideal, but I don't think it's quite the dumping ground that January, February is.
Get kids back to school. They're back in school, right? Get them all together.
Fun's over.
A hot horror movie comes out. The kids are in school. They'll probably go see it together, talking about it at school. Then they'll go back to school, tell their friends.
Yeah.
I don't know. Could that be it?
Something interesting about the timing of the release and also the kind of victim layout of this Halloween sequel versus all the others. So I think it was a couple of years ago, one of the Faculty of Horror podcasters, Alex West, she released her second book, and it was called The 90s Teen Horror Cycle. It was about things like I Know What You Did Last Summer, all that stuff, urban legends, Scream, and how it really kind of teenified. It gave teen personality, not just teen victims, but teen personality to these movies. And in this Halloween sequel, I felt that so hard. It's not just that teens were the victims. Here's teen life. Here are teen issues with your parents. It's not simply like the Nightmare on Elm Street series or whatever, where you say that Jason's after you. The parents just don't believe you. The parents are adversarial. They're kind of like non-entities. So like in this, though, this seems to fall into that 90s teen horror cycle. I haven't read her second book. I only read her first one, but I wonder if she got into that. I really like that podcast, by the way.
I like that. I mean, it makes you wonder, though, because the zeitgeist is so clearly from Scream, right? You got the Weinsteins involved, which, the Kevin Williamson effect and all that on the script. But John, to your point, like, what do you make of that teenified, aesthetic versus the first Halloween? Because you can make the argument that, even Jamie Lee at the time was age appropriate. She's very young. That did still sort of include a lot of, banter from teens about teens, babysitting and all that.
It did, but even though they were drinking and you're inviting someone over while you're babysitting and having sex when the guy shouldn't even be there,
right?
Everything felt more mature. They could have all been 28.
That's fair. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of this movie, for better and worse, and we'll get into it later, I'm sure, just feels so much like a lessons learned from Scream and injected that into a Halloween tribute. Because that's what this is. I mean, none of this was going to happen until Jamie's, people and team got on board with the idea of paying homage to the fans and thanking them for all the, giving her a career, right? So I do like the Kevin Williamson infusion here.
This was another script. So there are these writers on this movie, Robert Zappia, and Matt Greenberg. They're responsible for like Children of the Corn 3, Prophecy 2, Reign of Fire, 1408, the most recent Pet Sematary. They wrote this as a masked killer.
Right.
And Michael Myers, it was going to go direct to DVD, and it was about him killing a bunch of boarding school girls.
Right.
And eventually they were like, this is a pretty good script. We should bring it to Jamie, Deborah Hill, and John Carpenter. Jamie Lee Curtis said yes. The other two said no. So then they kind of rewrote the script to make her the headmistress, make her have a son.
I was going to say, it wasn't until Jamie had input, I think, that she said, well, the timing is right and we can make this work. So. Yeah.
And I love too the kid, Charlie in this movie, just the really horny kid, the aggressively horny kid. He was the Michael Myers mimic in that. He was supposed to be the killer, and then they changed his character to be the kind of horny best friend in this. But you know what I like about this movie, though, and the more I like it, so it definitely has that teen element. You can't argue against that. But there's also neat scenes where 20 years later, Jamie Lee Curtis Laurie Strode, Carrie Tate, she's at lunch with her boyfriend. While he's in the bathroom, she houses a glass of wine, has a waiter run her out another one, so then it looks like she's still drinking that glass of wine. When she's with her son, she has her nightmare. He's looking at the pills. Nightmares. Like, he knows which pills to grab. At the end, she sends her kids away. And she's the one, a badass Jamie Lee Curtis walking back into this school to battle her brother to the death, which they talked about earlier in the film.
She pulls a Ripley to go take out the queen and save Newt.
Yeah, I love it. And so I guess this makes me like it more than those kind of teen thrillers, because it does have this. Jamie Lee Curtis is a grown woman in this, and I love her character too. Like, just, and even Josh Hartnett, even the kids that stay, you're like, oh, okay, I get why they stay. They're like, and I know why they're here. I know why she's here. This movie's 80 minutes. without credits. I mean, it's just so and
it doesn't feel short. It doesn't feel like they skimped on story either. There's plenty of dimensions.
It is basically the Frankenstein story, which Miner, as the director, uses in the classroom scene. You're right. I think when you're talking about like the teen aesthetic, it's stuff like that balances it out. So by the time you do get to the ending, it does feel like maybe not necessarily the creator of the monster, right, but somebody who's responsible for the monster, she feels, goes back to confront him. And it is like, talk about the many different endings of a Halloween movie in the series. Like, is there a more like triumphant and crowd pleasing moment? I don't think there is.
I saw this in the theater in '98, and we, John Lazovath, who was on the show, we talk about this movie a lot. This is one of our spirit animals for MFF. Lazovath, his mom took him to this, and he still doesn't understand why. His mom's just like, hey, you want to go see Halloween? He's like, yeah. So it's like one of his best memories watching this, and he was probably 14, 13, some 12. Right. So I saw this when I was 16 in a packed theater, and I'm telling you, it was weird, man. Everyone was cheering, clapping at the end when Michael reach out his hand. Like, I was hoping that Laurie would thumb wrestle him to the end. Like, I was hoping they would keep fighting, and it was such a neat experience. And I messaged John one day very excitedly. I'm like, I love H2O. We got to talk about it. And John's like, hell yeah, because I've been working on this assignment for Rotten Tomatoes, where I guess I'll release this episode after that episode goes up, where we're comparing Halloween 2018 and H2O. And I watched H2O again, and I wrote down all the best moments. Like, I watched the documentaries about it, and I love it more. And then I talked to you because I've dragged you into so many Halloween conversations, Adam. So, where do y'all think this stands in the pantheon of the Halloween franchise? Because based on all the data, like tomato meter score, audience score, box office, it's number 3. So it goes Halloween 1978, Halloween 2018, and then Halloween H2O 98.
I'll say that for the first 7 movies, I think it's the most rewatchable.
It is. It's got that element to it for sure. It's very easy to go down.
I would place this number 2.
Happily. For rewatchability or quality?
All over. Everything.
Considered, huh? It's funny. I was asked this question just an hour ago. I know I've used up my time on previous pods to explain my rankings, and I'll cut to the chase. The rankings are different now, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing because that would just take forever. But I do agree. This movie has just endured in a lot of ways, and I think partly one of the reasons is, as much as I think the 2018 rendition does a lot good, it's interesting. And I'm not saying anything against the 2018 iteration of Laurie's trauma. It's interesting to see a Laurie Strode dealing with trauma differently, and not just because she's younger, right? She has a different life, but she's endured a lot. She's battered, but she's not all consumed by it. She's clearly still in a different phase of trauma. So to see her sort of be very, again, it is a different level of aggression, right, by the end of the movie. So I don't know. I don't think one rendition of Laurie's character is better than the other, but it's refreshing, and watching it over again after seeing the 2018 version, I don't know, something about it. I think to give an answer on this, I would probably put it at number 3 or 4. Probably 4 for rewatchability and quality overall. It's just a fun movie.
You're what, 1, 3, 4, and then this?
Currently, in the moment, it's 1, 2, 4 in H2O.
Oh, that was kind of close.
You were close.
Nice. What about you, John?
God, I couldn't hazard.
It's
you mean like my top 4 Halloweens?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna say Halloween. This is a controversial pick. 4.
Okay.
Remake. Yeah, the Rob Zombie one that a lot of people hate. I like, but 4 was the first brutal Halloween movie. That's the thing. I like it when they embrace brutal. Then I'd go to 1, and then I think I'd go to this.
I don't think there's anything controversial about 4. I think there's plenty controversial about the rest. And
about picking part 4 is your number 1?
Oh, well, maybe. Okay, I will say that's less controversial than putting Rob Zombie's remake over the original.
I used to think that, and then last year I watched all 7 in a row in like a month, which I hadn't